Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Don't anybody say anything. Okay. This is the last part of our series, and the series was called the End of Life series. We started off with a representative from the funeral home and also a representative as an attorney. Our next part was from hospice, and that was very well received. They all have been very well received. The one after that was obituary writing. And the last one, we are really fortunate to have with us a local author, Holly Chorba, who has basically lived all of her life in the Potsdam area. She went to Potsdam State, graduated, went on, got her master's degree. In fact, I believe she has a couple of master's degrees, one in education and one in biology. So we're very, very fortunate this evening to have with us Holly Chorba. And what she's going to be talking about is a book that she's written called It's Okay to Scream in the Shower. Okay? And I'm sure we've all had times in our lives where we really want to go someplace and scream. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Holly Chorba.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for coming tonight. I know the weather was not exactly conducive for getting out and manning those sidewalks, but you're here, so thanks very much. This is, yes, the End of Life series, and when you get to be my age, 75, you really kind of see things are moving along. You're on top of that hill or over it maybe, and friends seem to disappear. But the book I wrote really is about just the opposite. It is about the end of somebody's life, perhaps, or the end of a portion of your life, such as maybe your home of 50 years, or maybe your close friend, or maybe being able to drive a car, or maybe being healthy. It might be the end of that phase of your life, but the focus really is on, okay, so now what do? Scream to get rid of that anxiety over all that and go on and live what you have left as best you can. For me, I do have a degree, a bachelor's in biology actually, and nature has been my savior throughout my life. So that's why I use as a mantra, it's nature by God. The book I wrote, it's got 25 photos in it, and they're photos of nature. And I don't credit myself with that. I credit the natural world with God. So I want to tell you a little bit about how this got started. This is Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. And I'll talk about them a little later. I had tried to import some music into this, his song, Happy Trails to You. But we'll talk about that later. Oops. Come on. And focus on just the book. I really hope that you can listen to me. I didn't want anybody to take notes because everything I say is in the book. If you want the book, if you can't afford it, it's $20 and it's here when I can pass it out. But it's also online as a Kindle book. For right now it's free, but it goes, Amazon makes it on sale or less. But you can check it out for that Amazon if you don't want a hard copy, and if you just want to benefit from what I have to say. Listen to the talk while you have the chance, because I won't be here tomorrow. My purpose is to give you the tools to help you deal with any significant loss you might have. For me, it was the loss of my husband of 30 years. For friends, it has been, I've had quite a few friends who've lost their husband, a couple who've lost their wives, a couple who've had to move, and a couple who have lost good health. So all of them have said that they found it helpful. I want to do that by providing some thought practice that will give you aid in carrying grief. People often talk about, well, you'll get over it. You don't. You don't get over it. You learn to carry it. And also, I've had people who are trying to help someone else who's grieving and found this very helpful. What I had to say is very helpful to support somebody who's maybe losing a parent or a grandparent or their home of the last even 10 years. And partly I want to do that by illustrating how beautiful the world remains and passing that attitude on to you. I remember when I first lost my husband, getting up to see the sunrise every morning was a very important thing for me. I've included a preface in the book by Linda Sparks. Linda Sparks was a friend of mine who, not a close friend, person I knew through a camera club. I lived part of my life in Arizona, and I knew through the camera club. She traveled a lot. She made great slideshows. And she sent me this email. Holly, I'm so sorry to hear of your loss. My husband also died suddenly and unexpectedly 8 years ago, so I know the shock and grief you are feeling. When that happened, I made up a list of all the stuff you should know and do and get when you lose a husband. Anne also found it helpful when she lost David. If you want, I'll send it to you in a day or so. If I can help with anything else, please let me know. The grief can seem crushing at times. Linda Sparks. As I said, I didn't know Linda really well, and I very much appreciated her non-intrusive approach. And that's something kind of to remember. If you know of somebody who you want to reach out and offer some help to, that was a great way to do it. And I did email her back and said, yes, help, anyway you can. So Linda did send me her email. That email, word for word, is in the book. And I just will read you a little bit so you get the gist of it. It's very practical things to do by and large. Linda's email. Hubby is dead. What do you do next? Send everybody on his email address book an email notifying them. They will want to know. Many of these folks will send back fond memories of your hubby that you never knew a thing about. It will help you feel better. Send similar email to your address book. Don't delegate this to somebody else. The personal things you want to say won't get said. Call those few friends or family closest to you. Then she deals with the question of funeral or cremation. She deals with death certificates, how many you might need. She talks a little bit about homeowners insurance, car insurance, life insurance, Social Security, bank accounts. That was a really important one for me. She says this about bank accounts. Don't take hubby's name off your bank account for at least 6 months following his death, at which time you'll need a death certificate. If a check comes in, you'll have a devil of a time cashing it if his name isn't on the account. That certainly happened to me. Luckily, I followed her advice, and I went from Arizona to New York, where they didn't have a Chase Bank up here, which was my Arizona bank. So I kind of forgot about it, and about 8 months later, I happened to be in Syracuse, where they have Chase Banks, went in to kind of put his name off the account, and the bank, thank goodness, was closed, because about 2 months after that, I got a check from the IRS saying, you've double paid your tax. My husband had done prepayment of tax, as many of you probably do, and I hadn't realized it. And so I paid the full amount and was able to just take that check and put it back into the account with his name on it. It was a joint account, it was a joint tax, but anyway, it could have been problematic otherwise. Some other things Linda says, don't be surprised if you can't Stand to cook for 1, you'll lose weight, you'll gain weight back. Expect complete recovery to take a long time. So, when I was so helped by Linda's email, I sent it along to several other friends. Within a very short time, I had friends dealing with deaths, and I wanted to pay forward the big help she did me. And that was part of the reason for writing this book. I include places for you to put your own practice. Each section of the book deals with, there's 3 sections, that they all deal with the same thing: physical and emotional being, communicating and relating, strengthening and evolving spiritually, and then meditating a little, thinking about all this. It's a lot to digest when you lose something significant. And you need to take some time to do it. So, as you probably have heard, there's various phases of grief. People say, to me it turned out, yeah, there's right off the bat when there's things you have to do. I was deathly afraid of losing my house because I didn't pay the mortgage. I didn't know how to pay the mortgage. I knew it got done. I knew how much it was, but exactly how to do it, I didn't know. And I thought, I'm going to do something wrong and the house will go down the tubes. Didn't happen. But also, there's physical things. Immediately, I couldn't sleep past 5 o'clock, which is good. I got to see the sunrise. I needed to sleep before I was with any other people. Again, sleep is really important when you're grieving anything. Health, particularly. Communicating and relating changes. Initially, I tried to call my family and tell them that Ron had passed. And my oldest brother says, Holly, what can I do to help you? He's a very control freak like I am. So I said, no, you can't, don't come out, whatever. And he says, well, I'll do anything you want to help you. And he said, do you want me to call other family members? And I said, okay, I can't really talk now. So he called everybody and told them, don't call her, though. She can't talk. And I wondered, why isn't anybody calling me? Because Ron died. What's going on here? Anyway, so that changes a lot. Once you get your balance back, you can do things like say to your brother, of course, yes, tell them. You can call them yourself. And then eventually you'll get to life after loss. Eventually, if you've, let's say you've had to have a leg amputated, eventually you will get to the point where you cope, and you cope successfully. And you'll never be happy about it, and you'll always wish you had that other leg, but you'll be able to go on. You'll have a life after loss, and it's my goal to have you have the best life possible after loss. So I give you guideposts. What are some things to think about, to do, to write about in each phase? In phase 1, I included this poem. It's by Robert Frost, Nothing Gold Can Stay, to kind of help you know everybody goes through it. Nothing gold can stay. Let me go on here. This is where I've lost my presenter notes, as you probably heard. Excuse me a minute here. I'm sure you can't read that from where you're standing, where you're sitting. Nothing gold can stay. Nature's first green is gold, the hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. And that's what we all have to go through. We have a spring. The spring is gorgeous and wonderful. We have a fall even, and but it can't stay. nature cycles. Immediately what you need to do is survive all that, and that's where you might want to cope by doing such things as screaming in the shower. You'll probably find that there's a lot of anxiety, and it helps to get it out with that early phase, immediate survival. And some people, one of my friends played pickleball like round the clock. That's how she coped. It worked great. That same friend, though, was having some difficulties after about a month, and she says, "Holly, what do you do?" I said, "I scream in the shower." She said, "You do?" I said, "Yeah, nobody can hear me in there, and it just helps get out that anxiety." She said, "Oh, I'm going to try that in the car." And she did. And she did. Initially, the 3 phases can work on how you feel about travel. Again, everybody's different. She went to the pickleball courts every day. I initially couldn't leave the house. I did not want to travel that far. And my sister came and stayed with me for a couple weeks. And after that, I could get to the mailbox, and I could get to the grocery store. Well, I couldn't really, until Ron's ashes came. So once Ron's ashes came, I could put them in the trunk of the car, and then I could go to the grocery store. I could do the near and necessary things. I had to go to the bank. I took my grandson with me. He was my driver for a couple of days that he came to visit. I needed to visit my mom. My mom had Alzheimer's. So my brothers said, "Please, Holly, don't tell her that Ron passed away. She can't deal with it, and if she recalls it at all, she'll recall it over and over and over again and be destroyed every time she thinks about it." So I said, okay. That worked fine for a couple months, but then my mother wanted to see me because I saw her every few months. And so I made one of those brothers come with me. "Okay, you fly to Florida with me because I need to do this." And he did, and it was great. And finally, the phase 3 exotic, a lot of people find that it's very, very helpful to go somewhere out of the ordinary. It doesn't necessarily mean the tropics, but it could. It might mean a different state, just a different type of living. It might mean the motel 30 miles away, just so it's different for you. And spend some time there so you're not surrounded by the sameness. This friend, Ellen, the one who screamed in the car, invited me to Turks and Caicos for a pickleball tournament. I don't like pickleball. I hate pickleball. I hate anything with balls flying at my head. But at first I said, no. And she said, "Well, yeah, come on, I could use a roommate. I really want a roommate. And it's beautiful there." And so I thought about it, and I said, well, if I can walk on the beach while you're playing pickleball, that sounds good, I'll go. And I did, and actually that's where I first started composing the book, was in Turks and Caicos, and that's where I took this picture. And that's where I realized the only time I've got on this earth is now, whenever now is, and how I spend it is up to me. And that was an excellent way to spend it. Not staying home like I had been doing, crying and so on. Part of the book is thinking about things that I express in photographs. And this one is the photograph about howling at the moon. That one was not Robert Frost. This is one of mine. And I want to give you that. My poor presenter notes are gone. Scream in the shower, howl at the moon. Retreat to your bower, peace will come soon. Wrap up in her dress, sleep in his chair, feel the caress of a spirit still there. And that's something else I talk about in the book. If you've lost a person, it can help you tremendously to keep their spirit close. I'm a biologist. I know that a dead body and a live body are extremely different, but the only difference is energy. And they say energy cannot be created nor destroyed. So when someone passes, the energy, the spirit is there. Where it is kind of depends on who that person was. My husband and I were great hikers, great nature lovers. And I think that's why it worked for me to find his spirit in nature. Actually, I just took my grandkids on a hike yesterday, part of the Northville Placid Trail that he and I hiked. And I saw what we saw. I saw what we saw. I felt close to him. I was supported. And I also realized I'm on this earth to still enjoy that. I appreciate him. I appreciate nature by enjoying it, by staying alive, by being here. And again, when you lose someone, recall their spirit. This was another contemplative picture. This is grief is love with nowhere to go. This is my backyard in Arizona, where you can see you wouldn't want to go anywhere there. There's a lot of snow, there's a lot of prickly cactus, and you'll feel that way. Grief is love with nowhere to go, but eventually you find places to channel that love, whether it's to helping other people, to loving your grandchildren, to making your body strong despite the leg you lost, to developing a new home so that you have friends there and things to do there that you enjoy. Whatever your loss is, find somewhere to that love to go. And this, another one. This is very sad. This is all in my book, which is why I keep flipping through this, but I don't want to bore you with that either. How you draw people near you, which is important when you have a loss, depends on your culture. I was very lucky to have a girlfriend who was, her son was killed in a car accident, and she held, kind of like Shiva, she had family and friends just come to her house. And actually, two girlfriends, myself included, intervened. People would come to the door. We'd say, Donna's resting. She's happy you're here. Let us have you sign her guest book. Often people brought food. We say, you can come in and eat with some other guests now, but you won't be seeing Donna. She's resting. Or we could say, come on in. Donna's in the living room. I'm sure she wants to talk to you, depending on the circumstances. So that went on for a few days. Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead, is something I learned about in Arizona, and it's another way for people to commemorate passing of a loved one. And it's a celebration, usually held at kind of All Souls Day, the end of October, very beginning of November, where people left on this earth invite the spirit of the deceased back to party with them. And they do have a parade. Tucson has the longest parade in the world of that. So it's a time of sharing sadness and joy, as this says. Yes, they're sad the person passed away, but they are very glad that they had that person, that they had those memories. It's important, however you do it, that you have other people who grieve that same loss with you. This is my family, who includes, this must have been at my mother's funeral in Arlington, because my husband is not there. My father died a couple years before my husband, and then my mother died a year after. So they were both buried in Arlington, and the best part about that is everybody came together. And I got to see my grandkids, my youngest brother, people I didn't see all that often. The same is true whether you decide to have a wake or a funeral or Shiva or Day of the Dead celebration. Get those people who support you with you. This was about touch. Touch is, again, in those phases of grief, early, middle, and late, how you react to touch will change. Often, early on, you have some sort of reception type of thing where people will hug you, and you might find that's very, very reassuring. I did, but actually I didn't have that kind of memorial. But I also found, I went to my physical therapist who had been giving me some PT for my back, and she went into touch therapy and did kind of like a massage that was very helpful. So that was early on. Later on, not too much later, when I found I could go out and started to go to club meetings and stuff, any guy who touched me, I went kind of berserk. I had a friend who kind of went up to me like this from behind, and I didn't even know he was there. But I could tell from his voice, right off the chair I went. I didn't want anything to do with men I was not related to for a couple of years. It was tough. But again, that changes. And one of the things you should keep in mind is emotions will change. No matter how distraught you are, that distress is not forever. Yes, the grief might be forever, but you'll learn to carry it. The distress is not forever. These are some friends who were with me in Arizona a year after Ron passed, who actually they were helping me bury some ashes. Accept the support this offered you. This, hold that spirit close and be kind to yourself. This is a picture I took in my backyard too. And my friend Ellen had a cardinal that was a support for her. This cardinal came to her kitchen window every day after her husband Joe died. And she thought that was, at first she thought it was really nice. She felt Joe there. And she felt good about Joe being there. And then something happened to her, and she decided, oh, that's silly. It was kind of too bad because she stopped feeling good about it. The cardinal didn't stop. My other friend, Donna, who lost her son, every time an eagle flies by when we're canoeing or butterflies, she sees the soul of Ben there in that, and it makes her feel good. And I think you need to just accept what you see that makes you feel good. For me, it's nature. When you're regaining your balance, this is a poem that actually occurs twice in the book. Look well to this day. This is where I have so much trouble with this. Oh, dear. Probably do better just in the book. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry those presenter notes didn't work. Here it is. Look to this day. I found this poem on the back of my grandma's wedding picture. My niece was getting married, and my grandma had this great wedding picture in a dress that I had worn for my wedding. And I decided to take off the glass and get a nice picture, make a card for my niece. And when I did that, in the back was this poem. Look to this day, for it is the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the glory of action, the bliss of growth, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow only a vision. But today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. And that's anonymous. It tells you all sorts of good things. That is, today's the day that counts. Today's the day you're alive. Yesterday is no more, no matter how bad it was or how good it was. It is no more, only in your head, only in thoughts. And what are thoughts? You can't capture them other than by directing your mind the way you want. And the same with the future. You can be anxiety-ridden and worry about it, but it's been said 80% of the things people worry about don't happen. So the best thing to do is focus on today. And my grandma's spirit lives on in me now because I think of that poem frequently, and redirect my thought. Oh, I did include it in here. There she is. Beautiful. She got married in 1920. So there are quite a few things that are in the book to remind you that today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday. When tomorrow comes, today is gone. This is your chance. I hope you're making the most of it right now. Get your balance back. Get back on your feet. Find your new way. I had some friends that took me to New York City to see the vessel. That's what this is. It looks like a giant urn from afar, but these are all sorts of bridges and walkways in Brooklyn, I think. And when you get there, it's very disconcerting. It's a great place to find your balance. And how do you find your balance? It differs for everybody, but find a way to carry that grief and live for today. Then phase 3, this is where Roy Rogers comes in. What will you do? Some trails are happy ones, others are blue. It's the way you ride the trail that counts. Here's a happy one for you. And it was written by Dale Evans, sung by Roy. I go back to the literal trails in nature. People do different things. Nature, music, and prayers are trails, pathways that people use to cultivate a positive mood. Prayers of gratitude or prayers of intention can put your mind focused every morning on what might do well. There's resources that I've included in the book. This is one. Actually, you don't even have to suffer a loss to benefit from this book, Design the Life You Love. It's a book where you read a little and you write and think a lot. My book, I don't know if I told you, has places to write in it, but it will suggest things that various people have done, and then it asks you to jot down what is it you think. Some of those are practical, like where are your passwords for your computer? Or where is your information for your spouse about your lawyer or your bank accounts or your life insurance? So, and others are more suggestions that are more personal and less practical maybe, but if you could say something to your departed spouse, write it down in a letter, burn it up, blow it up in smoke, send it to his spirit or her spirit. If you're thinking about why you're still here, if you're so miserable you feel like not being here on this earth anymore, but you're still here, write down, why are you? How are you going to celebrate the deceased? How are you going to commemorate? I told you about Dia de los Muertos. This child is a Hispanic child who was at a Day of the Dead celebration called Parade of the Little Angels. And in Tucson, they have a festival, I guess you call it a festival. It's get-together of children in a park, children of all ages. It's led by some adults, and the children can color and cut wings, like this little boy has on, or face masks, but it's all to commemorate somebody they have lost. And so often children get forgotten, and they are not invited to a funeral or a wake because it's said they're too young. But they feel grief terribly, and it helps them so much. I know, because I was there. If you talk to them about, hey, what are you doing here today? What do you want to share? What happened? They're just so comforted to know they're not alone in their grief. Again, readings, there's a lot of readings that are in the book that you might profit from. Initially, something extremely short is helpful because you don't want to think about things. Something that might direct your mind to a positive. This particular book my friend Donna gave me, she's my friend who lost her son, How to Heal a Grieving Heart, and it was like a page a day, but on that page, there wasn't even a full page of text. Just a small suggestion. Daily Word is another one you might be familiar with that has that. Just a way to direct your mind from to something other than the loss. So, I think we have more company. That's what I hope to give you through this book. And if you'd like it, it's there, it's available. I can sign it. If you want to think about it or don't want it, that's fine too. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to discuss any aspect you'd like. Thank you.